Okay, so
Hold on.
yeah, Nehemiah,
Yeah,
make
hold
sure
on.
make sure you have only your slide on the screen that you are sharing.
That's what I'm trying to.
Yeah.
Can you see it?
Yeah, we can see. I can see it on a YouTube link.
Oh. I want a situation where I can click through.
You can do what?
I can click through.
Yeah, you can.
Yeah, but
what?
The slide.
No, just share only your screen. Don't watch the YouTube video.
Okay, I'm not watching the YouTube. I'm just saying. So you see, share screen one, share or share application window. So if I share, is the slide.
Yeah, so you share the slide and you can use the arrows to navigate it. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, good.
Where's the arrow?
The arrow key is on your keyboard.
You drop down and drop up and down. That's right. Now down. Next.
I can't see it.
You can't see the presentation.
No, I can see my presentation, but clicking through it.
No, clicking, you use your keypad or your mouse.
Yeah, but it's not going through.
It's not moving.
Yep, unless.
How about using your mouse?
Presentation mode.
Yeah, I think. Okay, it's moving now. It's moving.
I'm so frustrated.
Is it move? Are you okay? I think we are already live, so we are losing time on the recording.
Okay, so should I start?
Yeah. Let David share his link.
Yeah, live.
Okay. So David, you monitor the main channel.
Yes.
So if there are questions you ask, I will be going on mute.
Okay.
Circles, national government, and allies.
Tell David to share the link with me as well.
Okay, I'm sharing it now, so you can go ahead now. Wait. You can go ahead. I'm sharing it.
So I should start?
Yeah.
Okay, good evening once again. Sorry about technical difficulties. So obviously we are starting an hour late. This will be a continuation of what Emmanuel started some weeks ago, where he went through various aspects of data science. Today we'll be focusing on data science from the visualization perspective. So our topic today is data the visual way. My name is Nehemiah Tigan, yours truly. We'll be going through some definitions and we'll go through importance of data visualization, the history of data visualization, types of visualizations. We'll look at some examples, we'll look at benefits and sectors that more or less need data visualization the most. We'll also look at some tools and then conclude. Then subsequent sessions, we'll look at diving deeper into some of these tools that we'll look at. So we might look at how to visualize with a spreadsheet, how to use R or any other programming language. So we'll look at some of them. We can also look at tools that allows you to template. So you just use a template and you visualize your data. So in subsequent sessions, we'll do that. Okay, so let's jump in. A bit about myself. I'm simply a fancy, technology loving foodie. So I like food. I love technology. I'm partly fancy, I'm partly aware. My experience, my background is in software engineering, project management. I have a lot of experience in open data as well and digital technologies. I'm the CEO of Hardware Tech Limited, an IT company based here in Accra. I'm also the principal lead of Odipro, an open data-driven parliamentary monitoring organization. Okay, so who are you? Well, I don't know who you are, but I can guess that you might be an activist that wants to use visualizations to make a strong case, or you're a blogger, a journalist that wants to tell a story using data, or you're a developer, a coder that wants to build an app that is driven by data, or you're a data enthusiast that just wants to share your passion playing around data sets, or a decision maker that would like to put numbers in a certain context. Let's look at a few definitions. So I mentioned Odipro being an open data-driven organization. So one of the basic things Odipro does is to mine data. So our first definition we'll look at is data mining. Data mining is a group of activities or a set of activities that is used to gather data. So you find data, whether new or hidden or in unexpected patterns. So the example of Odipro, we sometimes receive the data in various forms, in CSVs, in PDF, in Word documents, even in hard copy. And then we scan that and OCR the text into a parser that will put that in a database, and then we can move on to use that data in the manner that we like. So when people gather data, store in a database, they are mining the data. Our next definition is infographics. So I'm sure a lot of you are familiar with infographics, especially those who tend to follow the online media a lot. You notice that they use a lot of infographics to tell their stories or back their stories or the agenda they are trying to set. So infographics are visual representations of information, data, or knowledge, often used to support and strengthen and present a case within a context. So if I was talking about healthcare and I put an infographic about the healthcare situation in Ghana, I'm talking in a certain context, and I want to back that. I want you to appreciate what I'm talking about well. So I'll visually represent that and provide that information and the data on an image. So you have to bear in mind that an infographic can be static, animated, or interactive, but it is always context sensitive. So it always has to have a context. Our next definition is what we'll be focusing on today, which is data visualization. So data visualization are visual displays and representation of data to reinforce human cognition of the use of what a coordinated system, points, lines, shapes, digits, letters, quantified by visual attributes. And I'll explain this further as we go on. Or you can simply say that it's a process of converting raw data into easily understood pictures of information that enable fast and effective decisions. It also accelerates the identification of relationships, hidden patterns, and discover meaning in data. The human mind, if you were to put two sheets of papers in front of me right now, or in front of you, I'm going to pick up the visual image better and longer than the text, because the human mind tends to pick what is visual and it sticks there and understands and processes it faster than a lot of text. So that is why we always say, or as they say, a picture is worth 1,000 words. So a picture can mean 1,000 words. Again, data visualization or your visualization could be static, it could be animated or interactive. So why do we love visual data so much? 50% of our brain is involved in visual processing. So if this large percentage of our brain is used to process visual things, then our best bet to consume any form of information is visually. And over a certain period, the use of visual information has increased over 9,900% on the internet since 2007. So I mentioned the interactivity whilst I was going on. So a lot of the visualizations you see might be, especially if you see it in a newspaper or on some websites, would be static. But there are situations where some of these visualizations are sitting on a certain engine, and so it allows you to interact with the data. So you can decide to change certain variables. For instance, if I was looking at election data and I decided to just look at, let's say, just NDC in the Ashanti region, and I change the filters or I change the parameters, I'll have some interactivity. So it does not limit you to some sort of page turning image, and it allows you to play around the data. So the question is, can this be done in any other media? So can it be done? Can you have interactive data visualizations in print media? No, it can only be done either on the web or digitally. So if, for instance, I was presenting the data using a certain software on the internet, you are able to interact with it. So let's look at some of the importance of data visualizations. It conveys a message in a simple way. Again, if I put a lot of text out there and I put out the same message in an image, I could leave you to try and interpret it without saying anything, or I could actually just add a little bit of text to give it the context that it requires and to convey that message in a very simple way. There's also the opportunity of giving a good summary of the information and also providing a certain concept. So the image you see, for instance, in my slide shows that major natural hazards experienced by communities over the last 10 years. And the sample number you are playing with is 553. And so, as you can see, 23 cyclones, 7 hailstorms, 37 floods, 13 tsunamis, 13% droughts, and 7% other. So it gives you a summary of the information that you are trying to chew on. Maybe if I was to put a ledger of all the hailstorms that have happened, that makes up the 7%, you might not be able to grab it properly. You might not be able to understand it properly. So it helps you maintain focus on the context that is being put out there. Again, another importance is the ability to make information simple and easy to understand, and also improve decision making. So if we're looking at natural disasters and we're looking at how it impacts communities, to be able to see how we help those communities, be able to see that the key thing that affects people when a natural disaster happens is the basic needs, especially with food. And then the next thing is, how do they go back to their livelihoods? Healthcare is another key impact, and then education, because maybe their schools would have broken down and you need to provide them schools to attend. Some of them might have suffered injuries as well. Okay, so another one is taking less time to understand and read through what has been put in front of you. So because data is constantly growing, if you want to tackle the growing volume of data and still want to maintain focus or attention on the information you're putting out there on your audience, be it a board or be it your readers, if you're a media person, or even be it an app developer who wants somebody to keep coming back. The user experience that people want is not to come and play with a lot of data, but something that they can easily understand and read through and go away. And finally, data visualization allows room for creativity. So it's usually not set in stone. There's no absolute rule for data visualization, even though there are some sort of standards and principles you want to follow. It allows room for creativity. Next slide. Hello?
Yeah, we're here.
Is data visualization different from storytelling?
Pardon? That's a question.
Is data, yeah, that's a question. Is data visualization different from storytelling? Or how
Well,
different?
you can tell stories using data visualizations. So I'll say that using an infographic or using any sort of image that has information and data to tell a story, it's an infographic. And I have examples for you to see. My slide is not moving.
Your screen is back on. We can see history.
My slide is not moving.
We can see history as a... Okay.
Has it moved?
Yeah, we saw it. We saw your next slide. You've come back to history. Yeah.
The next. So now we are talking about history, and I would want to say that data visualization even started before computers. So it predates the computer age. As far back as 1812, a French civil engineer called Charles Menard illustrated the disastrous result of Napoleon's failed campaign in Russia. And so as you can see this image points out all the places Napoleon went to, place at the times he retreated. So that this is a timeline visualization. But at the same time, Menard points out the places where the number of troops that were lost and everything. So you can actually see the outward and the return legs with the temperature of the retreat all in this line graph that is giving a certain timeline with the statistics involved. So fast forward, we have computers. The same image I just showed you of 1812 is somewhat animated, and so now if you look at it, you can look at when Napoleon lost his entire army to, from the time he started, where he had 100,000 people, to the time he lost his army. And you can see all the places, the cities that he went to, and places where he retreated, and places where there was a downfall, and all of that, clearly listed with the dates from November all the way to December 7th. And so Charles Maynard and James Burton are more or less people who started propounding the theories of data visualization. And so if you go on to the next one, you see a 3D image of that same map from 1812. The next person is Jacques Burton, who in 1967 also wrote about graphical visualizations in his Semiology of Graphics, stated that the transformation from numbers to insight requires two stages: algorithm and perception. So from data processes and an image or an insight that gives the perception. So your data or processes would bring out an image, which would then give people the insight. So the image allows for the perception or the context you want to create. So he had some visual variables, 7 of them, which was more or less focused on images. So in terms of position, in terms of form, in terms of orientation, in terms of color, in terms of texture, in terms of value and size. So Burton's key concept was focused on an image, even though based on your algorithms or whatever you are trying to, the processes you go through, you get your image, which will build a perception. So an image is a fundamental perceptual unit of a visualization. So without an image, you have no visualization. Without data, you don't visualize. So an ideal visualization will contain a single image in order to optimize efficiency and the speed with which the observer can extract the information. So you are not providing a visualization to someone where you are trying to build a certain context, yet you have multiple images. So let's look at the types of visualizations. You have scientific, which usually is focused on structural data, seismic or medical data. Then you have the information visualizations, which usually has no inherent structure. It could be news. So, I mean, the question someone asked in terms of storytelling could be something about the stock market. It could be about top grossing movies. It could be about social media connections. Then visual analytics that allows you to understand and synthesize large amounts of multimodal data. Now, we'll dive deeper into this in our subsequent sessions where we look at visualization techniques. So typically, you might have a lot of charts to play with. And so some charts are looking at relationships, some are looking at composition, some are looking at distribution, some are looking at comparison. So if you're doing bar charts or column charts or area charts or line charts, you typically will be doing comparisons. Whereas, and even that, whereas you might be looking at a relationship, so you want to use, let's say, a scatter chart or a bubble chart. And if you're looking at distribution, again, you could go with a column histogram or a line histogram, or you could even still go with a scatter chart or a 3D area chart. Then if you're doing composition, You can go with a stacked column chart. You can also go with stacked area chart. You can go with a stacked line chart. You can go with a pie chart or waterfall chart. Again, we'll look at some of these into detail and the good times to use and the times not to use them. So let's look at some examples of infographics or data visualization. So the first one I'm showing is an infographic that is telling us how much fuel it takes to power a light bulb for a year. And so if you were doing coal, you could be doing 714 pounds. If you are doing nuclear, you could be doing 0.035 pounds. If you are doing natural gas, 143 pounds. If you are doing hydroelectric, that's a lot. If we are doing solar, again, and if you are doing wind. So the context of this infographic is to tell us how much fuel it takes to power a light bulb for a year. The next one is a pie chart for census data. Now, if we did a census, let's say across Ghana, and we're looking at the data with an output of how many people are married and how many people have never been married, and how many are divorced, how many are widowed, how many are separated, how many are married, but they have their spouse absent, what we call the forced bachelorhood or forced spinsterhood. So again, you can see a pie chart being used to visualize the census data. The next one is an area chart for energy consumption, where it looks at energy consumption over from 1949 to 2009. So the red is the total energy production, and the blue is fossil fuel production. And so, as you can see, less fossil fuel have been produced as compared to the other parts of fuel that has been produced for consumption. The next one is also an infographic, but so this is more or less telling a story about how the amount of money spent on non-operating hospitals. So this is from CTFM. As you can see, Ghana spends 689 million on the Eurojet hospital projects. One of the hospitals being a 500-bed hospital in Kumasi, 250 in Ashanti, another one in Medina, and the list goes on. And so, again, what they are trying to do with this visualization is to give people the information about how much money has been sunk into these hospitals, but are not operating. And so the story that is being told is clear. The government has spent money, taxpayers' money, or loans in hospitals, and on completion, they are still not being used. And so if you look at most of them, they were completed from 2015 up to 2017. All these hospitals have been completed, but they are not operational. So that tells you a story. There's another one that tells the story of Martin Amidu's vetting. And so 7 hours, he was vetted for 7 hours, 45 questions, 8 from the majority, 51 from a minority. And this tells you that maybe the minority were more interested in vetting him. Also because he's a nominee of the president, so you do not expect the majority to ask a lot of questions. And so Haruna Idrisu alone asked 51 questions, and the minority asked 136 questions. Now those questions being overruled. And so the facts are all clearly there for you to see. The next example of visualization is the cost of land in Accra. The cost of land in Accra has gone up by 450% within the last 13 years. And now a piece of land at Apollonia costs $47,500. Apollonia originally was a place that was earmarked by Rawlings in the in the late 80s for biogas experimentation. So it was more or less a village until now. The Independence Avenue, an acre of land there will cost $4 million. So you can clearly see where Ghana is going in relation to the cost of land. It keeps growing. The next visualization gives a fair idea of the population over a metropolis and municipality, and then a district. And then it also gives you what makes up. So there's an MC, and there are a certain number of departments and other structures underneath. The next visualization shows us the election flashpoints, the percentage of election flashpoints during the 2016 election. So intimidation by security officers, 18%, 9% you see harassment of officers, improper voting 6%, improper polling station activities 5%, denied access to the polling station 3%. So these were the flashpoints from the 2016 election. The next one, the next example shows. So if you look at it clearly, every visualization I've shown has a different format or a different form. So it goes back to the chart options that I showed earlier and how it pans out. So depending on what you're doing, whether you're doing comparisons or relationships, you're able to pick the type of chart you want to use. So gross enrollment rate across West Africa. So you are looking at lower secondary school. This data comes from UNESCO Institute of Statistics. So if you look at it, in 2012, Niger had the lowest enrollment rate. Cape Verde had the highest, followed by Ghana, and then Gambia, and then Sierra Leone, and then other countries follow. Next infographic is more or less using a line chart that shows Ghana school, secondary school enrollment at a percentage. So by in the 1980s, we're somewhere around 40%. We went down, down, even in the 2000s, and then we rose up again by 2011. We're working around 60%. And I'm sure now the numbers are even higher with free education. And you can also look at same for, again, look at this. This is a line chart for this visualization, and this other visualization is based on that chart. And you can see, yeah.
There's a question here.
Okay.
How did you get election flashpoint data?
How do we get election flashpoints data?
How did you share some data on election flashpoints?
Okay,
so how did you get this data?
So for me, during the election, I was running teams in 4 election situation rooms. The one at WANEP, the women's situation room, the one at IDEC, and the Kodeo one. And so the team at the WANEP room were collating data from the ground. There's even one in the police. So the police situation room had people from my team sitting. And so when the issues come in, they track that into a system. So we had a system that was pulling the data from social media and also people who were physically on the ground bringing in information or data, and all of that was being collated. And so at the end of the day, we created charts based on that.
Okay.
So I can continue. Okay, so the next one is budget allocation, which usually people are interested in. So you can compare between 2017 and 2018, how much was given to, let's say, the energy ministry. They had 890 million in 2017 and they had 914 million in 2018 as an allocation. And there are a lot of examples like that. And we can also look at how much we've paid for fuel from January to September 2017. We are in 2018, so but this is still relevant. We are almost at 5 almost at 5 cedis per liter. Again, the source of the data here is NPA and the Chamber of Petroleum Consumers. And so as we look into the principles, we would realize that it's good to cite the source of your data. So the question that came right now, obviously, if I had cited the source at the beginning, the person wouldn't have asked because they will see that on the chat. So it's very important to cite the source of your data. So the breakdown of polling stations in the 2016 election, again, you can clearly see the numbers from 2012 and 2016. So this is a comparison for the 10 regions in Ghana. And you can see that all of them marginally went up because the electoral commissioner decided to divide the polling stations and put them in a certain structure. I think that this is enough in terms of example. So we'll look at some of the benefits and then the sectors. Not to belabor the point, data visualization would help translate data patterns into insights. So if I took, let's say, data about healthcare and about the Choco area, and I was capturing data in terms of their visits to the hospital and what sort of ailments they brought, I'll be able to point out the insights as to when cholera outbreak is about to happen, or even look at maybe the cases of HIV or even malaria. And so based on that, you can decide to go back and say you are going to educate them, or you're even going to tell pharmaceutical companies to produce more of these medications, or even import more of these medications, or even train more specialists to treat these issues. Once you have insights, it's easier for you to make decisions. It's easier for you to nip some epidemics in the bud. And so it's key to provide insights if you are doing data visualization. It also enables us to see influences that would otherwise be difficult to find. So the example I just gave, I mean, it would have been difficult to find if you are not visualizing data. And that's one of the difficulties I have with everybody who comes and says, I'm going to change Ghana, I'm going to develop Ghana, and we do not have any stats or data to base our development on. Why are we building this number of schools? Why are we building this number of hospitals? It should be based on the fact that in this location, there's this population. So if I go and build a day school in this area, it's going to serve this group of people because we have this population, and maybe the population is growing by this percentage. Okay, so by simplifying your visualization or presentation, you can reduce the time and difficulty it takes to move from data to decision making. It also makes it possible to interpret vast amounts of data and find the nuances that can make a difference.
So data is crucial.
Pardon?
Availability of data and accurate data for decision making is crucial. So it's not only any data, but the data must also be authentic.
Yes, it's crucial that it's accurate or it's correct, and it's also crucial because if you are going to use that to take a decision, then the best thing to do is ensure that it's correct. So if you had students in school and they were not doing well, you cannot assume that he's not doing well because he's sleeping in class. But based on the data that has been provided, you know that the students are not doing well. An example I'll give you is when someone from the district office in the Volta region said education standards are falling. And why was the reason? The students are staying away from the class. Why? Because they are not coming in because of various reasons. Some they are coming from a one-bedroom house. Your father and your mother want to throw you out, and so you go and live with a boyfriend and ABCD. But he's saying this. Can he show us data that shows that this is the reason why the standards of education is falling, because they are not coming to school? I mean, once you make claims like this, or you claim that let's do this to change the situation, then you need to be able to back that up with some data. The future of data visualization is not just the future, it's the present and the future. It provides transparency, so you know who is doing what and where. It also allows for people to engage with the issues, because everyone tends to see the data and interact. So they're able to provide feedback. So if you said you've built 5 schools and people are living in these places, once you've provided the information, everyone can see. Maybe the schools are not there. They're able to tell you, they're able to provide feedback that is there or it's not, or it's even there, but it's in a bad shape. So allows for efficiency. So people find ways of improving what they are doing because they are not doing this in an ad hoc manner. They are not doing this based on assumptions, but based on data that is available and that's been visualized in a manner that everybody can see. And again, it allows for innovation because once people can see things, they are able to enhance or enable new ways of doing things. So the key sectors that use or need data visualization, first of all, I say education, because whether you are building infrastructure, whether you are changing curriculum, whatever you are doing to churn out a certain type of students for your job market or for your human capital, you need data. We cannot, as we sit right now, we cannot point out how many data scientists are in Ghana, how many software engineers are in Ghana, how many civil engineers, how many catering people. It's difficult. Even if they were going to even tell us how many doctors we have, we've produced, how many of them have stayed, we do not have that data.
So how are we taking our decisions then if we don't have data?
A lot of assumptions. So even the budgets you see the Ministry of Finance put out is usually based on a lot of assumptions. You're assuming that this and that is needed, or you're assuming that this will be this. So a lot of the decisions taken in this country are based on assumptions. Based on assumptions. I can tell you for sure that the hospitals are not obliged to provide data that says that today or this week, this number of cases came in and it was malaria and it was HIV and it was this and it was that. We should be able to gather this data to help us either educate or help us curb these things.
But institutions are not giving out data in the name of privacy.
There are some data that I cannot go and ask for security data. I cannot go and ask for. I should be able to be given, if let's say I decided to do health education awareness, I should be able to be given data that shows where cholera is predominant, where malaria is predominant, where's HIV. I'm not saying give me the names of the people, but I should be able to know. That will inform where I focus. So if let's say I was the World Bank or I was even World Health Organization, and I wanted to pump money, and I felt that this NGO would be better in doing the education than Ministry of Health, how do I find where to go to start and educate people on the right ways of doing this without data? So institutions, yes, need to gather, but what I've learned from experience is sometimes you need to take the backward approach of gathering the data yourself and forgetting about the government institutions to do that. It might be difficult, it might be extremely challenging, but if you truly want to cause change, then or you are trying to do something that would benefit the public or yourself, even if you're a business person and wanted to start an organization that is driven by data, you might want to start without them. Eventually, they will catch up, but this is where we are. Same thing with agri. How much eggs are we consuming in a day as a country? How much of this are we consuming? You cannot tell farmers to produce more cassava or ABCD when you are not sure of how much people are consuming these things. How much of it is exported? How much of it is used by big industries? How much of it is even used by smaller production houses? People are doing shit up. They are using shrimps and they are using this. How much of that is being used? So how much of that is being produced? That will be able to help you go back to the farmer and say, you know what? You're producing this much of this. If we give you money, and this is one of the reasons why the banks do not support farming, because they are not sure about you saying that you're going to produce this more tons of maize. If you do not have the data, banking is another space. What are people using their monies for? You see, right now we've gotten to a period where you should visualize the customer journey of your customers or your prospective customers to be able to sell the right product to them, to be able to encourage them to invest in certain products. You have to track and gather the data. And so some of this data can even be mined from social media, where you look at the kind of things your prospective customer or your customer is clicking as interest. Okay. I've already talked about government, and so I'm not going to dwell on that, but obviously we can not develop without mining data and visualizing them. Telcos use a lot of data, and if you look at people who do a lot of analytics and business intelligence, it's telcos, because it's a very competitive space, and so if you want to continue winning customers and seeing what goes on, you're able to you have to mine the data. So a telco might pull, let's say, their best salesperson from, let's say, Sprintex branch to Medina, and suddenly the sales is falling at Sprintex. Well, if they are tracking the data, they're able to see quickly and see how they can solve that problem. But if they are not, then that doesn't happen. Capital markets, security. If the police were mining and visualizing the data, they will be able to see the hotspots of issues like robbery and attacks and all sorts of things. Then, even though we have meager resources, you'll be able to do targeted policing, where you know that this place, armed robbery is high, so let's push people there to go and patrol, or to go and try and get the people to stop what they are doing. So what do we do to get, or what do I do to get the data? You need to find it, as I said. It's either you're mining it or you're collecting it in various forms. You can either depend on an institution or gather it yourself. Once you gather the data, you can go ahead and visualize the data and then analyze that. And so when you analyze it, you'll be able to establish or recognize the patterns or insights, or tell a story. And you obviously would then present the data.
Is the source of data very important? Because
is the source of data really what?
Important. Or any data is okay.
Yes and no, because if I was taking data from a credible source, then it gives credence to what I put out there for people to consume. I cannot make informed decisions based on data from somebody who is not credible. Again, if I was collecting the data myself, I'm 100% sure of the credibility of the data. So the source of the data is very important, because somebody who is trying to paint a certain picture might put data out there that is not true, but is well articulated, and that could create a problem. So how do you get the data? You can download it, you can copy and paste, you can scrape it from the internet, and you can convert from hard to soft. You can type it if you really must. Okay, so, and then once you've gotten the data, you visualize it and analyze it. You need to start with a healthy data set. So that comes back to your question. So if it doesn't mean anything, visual would not make it mean more. So if the data is not healthy, it's scrap from a start, then it's not going to mean anything, even if you visualize it.
Yeah.
So the way in which you represent your data will determine how it is interpreted. So the way you visualize the data would also determine how it's interpreted. So I'll just give even though this one in subsequent sessions we can delve into, I'll just give you an example of a bad visualization that shows a certain percentage of sales over a period. And so if you look at the structure, the y-axis has the amount of sales, and then the year down there. I mean, this could be very misleading because you give an impression that there's a big change. But let's do the same thing differently by having rounded amounts. So 500, 1,000, 1,005. This time around, you see that the change is not too significant. I mean, it's just a small change. So this we can look at when we do other sessions. Now let's try and finish up by looking at a few tools before we conclude. So I've listed a lot of tools here, but I'll just point out a few. Spreadsheets people are very familiar with. Excel and Google and OpenOffice, Fusion tables, IBM Mini Ice, Tableau, Visme, Easily, PictoChat, Canva, Vengage. So depending on the tool and how it is used or what. So if you are doing an infographic like the one City does, you might want to try Vengage or Canva or PictoChat. Oh,
Hello?
I think we've lost Abel.
You lost him?
Yeah.
Oh.
And we can take questions whilst we wait for him to join us again. Oh, he's back.
Okay.
We can take questions whilst we wait for him to join us.
Any questions? Please drop your questions here. Yeah. Your internet finished. So should we end it?
Yeah. I think we should, yeah. Well, it's been an interesting presentation with the visualizations were very interesting to see, especially the example.
When we do the part 2, rather, let's do the part 2. So we can. Yeah.
And the
Yeah. Okay.
the last slide on the types of visualization is also something that will be interesting to explore as well. So I think going forward, interesting slides.
I'll wrap it up.
The different shapes we can different shapes and types of charts we can work with. And then the different types of visualization. He mentioned Tableau, Visme. Visme is almost is one of the interesting ones, and the many others. So for me, those are my takeaways. To look further at the types of visualizations he has mentioned, and then
exactly.
Yeah,
the type of visualizations that the examples were very interesting.
Exactly. Yeah, a lot of them.
Good to look at the data behind those examples that we saw on the slides. How the data was collected, the data sets and all that. That would be very interesting. The source and how the data is being maintained to ensure that it's credible.
Yeah, and the point is also very clear about what CTFM is doing. They do it quite well, and they bring the information home just with some of their visualizations. If you see the budget one and those, those yeah. So,
Nehemiah is actually deeply involved in that. Nehemiah is deeply involved in those activities, including those things.
Okay. Okay. So we look forward to his next presentation that will take us deeper into some of those visualizations and how he's able to create them.
Yeah. Okay. All right.
Is there any question? In the absence of any questions?
Any suggestions? No questions.
Yeah.
No further questions, then we should be wrapping up.
Yeah. Thank you very much for another interesting webinar. We are falling in love with data science.
Exactly. It's nice. I mean, you know, everything is practical.
Exactly.
You know, there's nothing too abstract about it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think there are some people. Okay, we have somebody saying great presentation.
Hello?
Good presentation.
Yes.
Okay. Welcome back, Nehemiah.
Thanks. Can you see my screen?
Yeah, so you sum up. We almost closed the session in your absence.
Okay. Okay. Well, if people have questions, we can just go through that. Else, just because I think I was just at the end of my presentation, so.
Okay.
Yeah.
So
that's okay. That's okay.
You can sum up. You can sum up. We so far don't have any questions.
So I mean, the number one takeaway for everybody is the fact that a good data visualization requires good data. And so when you are curating your data, you have to ensure that the data is in a certain format, and that will require sometimes you cleaning up the data. And the next takeaway is the fact that if you are trying to make comparisons, make sure they are valid. So remember your units, ensure that, percentages can be deceptive. So you need to be careful when you are visualizing data. So when you are doing graph scales, it can mislead you. So you have to choose the right method and choose the right chart. And people shouldn't forget to cite the source of the data. It's very important. And the final takeaway is you have to focus on the meaning of the data and not just how cool it looks. So don't think I aesthetic. It has to be accurate, and you have to, if once you're focusing on the meaning of the data, it will help sustain your argument, and it will also help anyone who wants to make a decision. So the three takeaways I'll give people is that, but just to say that in our subsequent sessions, we'll look at visualization techniques, sorting and filtering. We'll also look at using spreadsheets to do visualizations. We'll look at using templating tools. So some of the tools that I listed earlier, we'll pick a few of them and we'll dive deep into using them for visualization. Then the final session will be focusing on using code to create visualization. So we'll do some R programming to generate some visualizations. So
all right, great.
Thank you very much.
Great. Thank you very much.
It's been a tough thing with.
Yeah, we bent on building capacity in this area of data science. Started with helping people to learn Python programming. We're looking at other areas like R programming that you mentioned to help people with the right skills. So we don't only consume data, but we are also part of, creating and developing this data and making meaning out of them. So thank you very much, Nehemiah. We hope to see you again for the continuation of this presentation. And we also want to thank all our viewers and those who connected with us this evening. We apologize for the mix-up and the delay. We had some technical challenges and we fixed it only after an hour, but I'm happy that we managed to set it up. Thank you all for coming, and see you next time. Thank you.
Cheers.
Thank you.